Speaker Pro Tem, Joe Moody out of El Paso, Democrat out of El Paso. Welcome to the show. It's good to finally have you on.
Oh, I'm excited. Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. Tell folks a little bit about yourself.
So I've been here. This is my fifth session. I started when I was 27 years old. I was the youngest member at that time back in 2009. And I came in. I'm one of those that we consider part of the Lost and Found caucus. I won election in 2008. I was not invited back in 2010 and came back in 2012. And just been trying to work hard for my community out there. I'm a proud Texas Tech law school alum, and so always holds a special place in my heart the time I spent in Lubbock, and certainly tune in to hear what's going on your show from time to time. So I appreciate you having me, and excited for this session. I
appreciate it. Well, when you were named Speaker Pro Tem by Speaker Dennis Bonnen, and there were people out there who went, "Whoa, hey, Democrat is Speaker Pro Tem." A lot of people did not expect that. Talk about that position as Speaker Pro Tem and what it means. Your relationship to the Speaker,
Sure.
and I guess the trust that he has in you for that position.
Well, I'm certainly grateful for the opportunity, and so for those outside the building, it's under the rules. It's fairly straightforward. You preside in the chamber when the speaker is unable to preside over the chamber. So you'll help move the business of the House along when he needs some assistance doing that. I think outside the rules, outside of all of the official capacity, it's also a position to make sure that we're navigating the parts of the process that could get sticky. And having watched Speaker Bonnen in this role, I understand the value that he places on it to make sure that we're able to get out of session in May where 150 members, no matter where you come from, no matter what part of the political spectrum you represent, you see that this session was a success for you, and let the members dictate how things go. And I think he's set the tone for that early, and I hope that we are all going to be able to carry that forward through session. I see that as very much the largest part of my job.
What do you think right now? There are a few big issues that everyone talks about during this session. The Speaker has talked about the governor, lieutenant governor, property taxes, and school finance. When it comes to HB2, obviously it's being heard in committee right now. Where do you think we're moving on HB2, and is that something that you support, maybe as is right now, or something that you would support moving forward?
I certainly think that as that bill moves forward, it'll be a piece of legislation that I will be for. I know that there's a number of conversations around it. We'll see part of it happen in committee today, and I have to commend Chairman Burrows for a masterful job that he's doing with this. This is a large piece of legislation. It is not a simple policy arena to dive into. This is his first session as a chair, handling probably one, if not the biggest issue of session, the second largest issue of session. So I think he's doing a great job, and he is allowing, to the point that I talked about Speaker Bonnen, allowing this to be a member-driven process. He is certainly doing that with this bill, understanding that we are going to provide this reform. This is going to happen this session, and so he is doing his level best to discuss this with members across the spectrum, about what's going to work best for their communities. And so that's having that open door and having that honest conversation about this policy and making sure it works for the people of Texas, no matter where you're from. That is a great way to handle a very difficult topic.
What's the difference on this topic from last session and this session?
It seems like the partisanship is just sucked out of the building.
Really?
Which is nice.
Yeah.
As a member of the minority party, I can tell you that when everything becomes hyper partisan, it frays everything. And so I think we got twisted up last session. Obviously, when you get to the last day of session, there's nearly a fist fight on the floor. That doesn't happen in a vacuum. That happens because from day 1 to day 139, things weren't going right. And I think the tone that we have this session is, and this comes from the top. This is, Speaker Bonnen's wish is that, we're going to treat each other with respect. We're going to have an open, honest dialogue about things, and we're going to let the policy fall where it is. Now, we know where the party lines fall, but we don't need to step into those traps. We can actually work together for good policy. And I think that's it's a laudable goal, and unfortunately in politics today, I don't think you hear it enough.
Right. Last week, and we're visiting with Speaker Pro Tem Joe Moody here on the Chad HD Show at the Capitol. Last week, House Democrats unveiled I believe it was $14.5 billion education plan. Speaker was interviewed by some different news stations about this. He said there's no Democrat plan, there's not going to be a Republican plan, there's a Texas education plan. Kind of dismissing it seemed the plan that the Democrats rolled out with. Where do you think this ends up? Do you think this ends up as a unified plan, a Texas education plan, or do you think the left and the right are going to be unified on a plan? Do you think we're going to get, I think he wants almost a unanimous vote on something. Is that possible?
I think if we're all being earnest and trying to get something done for the kids, for the teachers, for parents, then we should get to that point. I think Chairman Huberty has been putting in an enormous amount of work, tremendous work with his committee. And again, to the Speaker's point, not a Democrat issue, not a Republican issue. This is a Texas issue. And I think the Democratic caucus laid out what I saw was a wish list of things that we'd like to consider as we get into this conversation. So retired teacher issues, helping teachers in the classroom, defray the costs that they're spending, for supplies and things of the like. So I think what the Democrats were doing last week was to set some markers out and say that these are we'd like these to be part of the discussion. We understand that at the end of the day we are we're constrained by the funds that we have available. And we're going to also have to partner, see what the Senate is going to come up with and work with them as well. And so, I think ultimately there will be a Texas House plan and you're going to see, if it's not unanimous, it's going to be nearly unanimous support for a policy that we all really need.
So the plan that was rolled out last week, it wasn't this is where it's either take this or leave it.
Oh, I didn't see any lines in the sand. I think that Democrats for a long time, especially a lot of our new members, and we have several new members in the caucus, this is an issue they certainly talked about on the campaign trail and want to continue. And they don't all serve on public education. So this is an opportunity for everybody to have some space in the conversation. And so, no, I didn't see anything as far as lines in the sand. I saw these are our kind of a vision statement rather than a legislative plan, because it really wasn't even tied to bills. There were a handful of bills that we talked about, but it was, like I said, I think more of a vision statement and to make sure that we can broaden out the conversation as we go forward. And I think that's a healthy part of the discussion. But I think the Speaker is correct. I mean, we don't, this is not a partisan issue and shouldn't be.
Talk about one of your bills, HB 63.
So, and this has now become not a partisan issue, which is fantastic. The Republican Party of Texas last time they met have added a plank to their platform to support legislation like this. And this is, people refer to it as decriminalization of small amounts of marijuana. What I try to do is talk about this in terms of, this is a civil sanction. So, because when I say decriminalization, some people equate that to legalization, which it's not.
Right.
It's still unlawful. What it would do is take an ounce, of possession, of marijuana and just say, we're not going to arrest you for it. We're not going to give you a criminal record for it. Not going to waste taxpayer resources on cops and prosecutors and jailing you for all that stuff. We're going to fine you. It'll be a civil fine. We're going to hold you accountable that way. We're going to treat it as a civil sanction rather than a criminal sanction. Kind of first of its kind in Texas. When we started drafting it, the lawyers here in the building were confused because we just criminalize everything in Texas. And so, you're going to talk to Texas Public Policy Foundation later. Talk to them about how many things we criminalize in the state of Texas. It's an ungodly amount of stuff. And so what this does is it just takes out the lowest level offenders, mere possession. So if you're doing something else, if you're driving while impaired or anything, that's still going to be an arrestable offense. This is just simple possession. But you're talking about close to 70,000 arrests in Texas every year. And that's local taxpayer dollars. And so we can just be smarter about this. And hopefully I think we're going to have a hearing on it next Monday. And we've got it voted out of committee in the last two sessions with a bipartisan vote. So I hope with the Republican Party stepping into this in a very real way. The governor talked about changing penalties during his debate during the campaign season. So I think there's a space to operate here, and it's just about smart public policy.
Do you think you're going to get a lot of Republican support for it?
I think so. And I mean, last session we had Chairman James White was a joint author on the bill, and also Representative Jason Isaac. Now Jason is no longer in the legislature, but since then I've had discussions with several other Republicans, and I think that if we're able to walk through the policy and why the bill does what it does and how it isn't a soft on crime, it's not something that you're going to have to really. There's no negative. There's no real pullback on this. If I can walk people through the process, I think people get comfortable pretty quick.
Yeah. Before I let you go, when we're visiting with Speaker Pro Tem Joe Moody out of El Paso, the vet school. You support the Texas Tech Vet School?
Oh yeah. I mean, and as far as El Paso is concerned, and I know that people keep trying to pit projects against one another within the system, within the Texas Tech system. There are 5 projects that the Texas Tech system needs. One of those is the vet school, one of those is the dental school in El Paso, and then there's others. We support them all. They're important to the institution as a whole. And so we're going to stand united on that, and we are not going to allow politics to break apart what we need at Texas Tech.
Speaker Pro Tem Joe Moody, good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
Thanks for joining me. You're listening to the Chad Hasty Show. We're broadcasting from the Office of Ways and Means inside the beautiful state capital of Texas, welcomed by Representative Dustin Burrows here on the Chad Hasty Show.